what's the one thing that I should do first that makes everything else either a bit easier to do or possibly unnecessary to do altogether. You have to be intentional about, all right, what lifestyle do I want? And am I busting my ass for a few years and then having an exit and then enjoying that lifestyle? Or am I building my business around the lifestyle I want? If you've got a great chainsaw and somebody else is harder working but only has an axe, the lazy guy with the chainsaw is going to win. So it's really prioritizing how to work, and sometimes it's not how, it's who. I like the idea of building your own wealth while making the world a better place at the same time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Attention marketers and entrepreneurs, this is Value-tizing, the place where we talk about scaling brands worth promoting. If you're a mission-driven entrepreneur obsessed with creating, scaling, and exiting multi-million-dollar brands, this is for you. My name is Santiago Phoenix, and I am a business growth consultant, online marketer, and investor. I have helped more than 100 7- and 8-figure founders increase profits, claim their time back, and transform the world. Now it's your turn. Welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome to Value-tizing. My guest today is Chad Maghielse, a business and real estate investor, mentor for entrepreneurs, and former 7-figure dog brand owner. Chad successfully started, built, and sold an e-commerce brand for dogs in under 3 years. And now he spends his time helping entrepreneurs become dog millionaires while creating change with their enterprises. Chad, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's so great. I want to start with your story because I think it's super interesting. And I actually saw that you have been part of other podcasts. But for the people who don't know you yet, can you share a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. You gave a pretty good intro. I built a dog brand. It was called Pets Are Kids Too, and was based around my wife and my 2 dogs, Brock and Beast, who are kind of our kids. I used to be a real estate agent, and was a teacher before that for 1 year. Didn't really like either of those careers. Wanted to kind of be my own boss, build my own business, all that stuff. I stumbled across a podcast by a guy named Kevin Reiser. It was called, I don't think the podcast actually exists anymore, but it was just called the Private Label Podcast. And I thought it was really inspiring because it's just kind of, it was a bunch of episodes kind of like this, where it's just interviewing real people who have done it or built a $1 million eCommerce business and had an exit or were still running their business. So that kind of gave me the inspiration to start looking into building my own brand. Listen to a bunch of podcasts, YouTube videos, all that. And then kind of the brand organically came about just because of my actual dogs. I've got 2, adorable little French bulldogs, but they're gross and they smell. And, we're watching TV on the couch one day and he cuddles up on my shoulder and his breath is terrible. So I wanted to get a dental product for dogs, but some of the ingredient profiles in most of the popular dental products out there weren't things that I felt comfortable with. And looking at some of the negative reviews on some of those products, a lot of other people felt the same about the ingredients. And I saw that as a differentiating factor that I could come to market with and did so. And, built an audience, launched that first product to the audience, got that product to 25 sales a day. I learned a lot from a guy named Ryan Moran with capitalism.com. And I do some guest coaching for his community. I teach their growth mastermind now. But Ryan always says that get product 1 to 25 sales a day, then launch product 2, because a $1 million business is not that it's easy, but it's as simple as 4 products selling 25 sales a day each at a $30 price point. And that's directly lifted from Ryan Moran. That when you break it down like that, it's a pretty simple process. If you can get 1 product to 25 sales a day, and then you can do that 3 more times, you've got a business that you can sell for $1 million if you have average profit margins. So it's pretty simple when you break it down like that. So that's what I did. Built the business. I had a few months of prep time, of course, but from the time I launched and took my first sale to the time of my exit was about 2.5 years. So,
well, what would you say? Like, how did you keep focused? Because
Yeah, that's the key in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's the key. Sometimes it sounds so simple, and like you're saying, it's simple on paper,
Uh-huh.
but in practice, how do you keep yourself focused?
So there's a bit of when you're a really busy entrepreneur trying to do a bunch of stuff and you're busy all the time. And I say this to myself or about myself, but also probably about any listener who's doing that. There's a bit of a humility pill you've got to take, because most of the time when we're too busy, it doesn't really mean we're productive. It just means we're spending a lot of time on busy work that isn't efficient. And it's kind of like, you can be careful how I say this, but if you're an entrepreneur, it is entirely possible to be working 16 hours a day and be lazy. And what I mean by that is just intellectually lazy, because it's like, it's comfortable to stay in patterns that are not productive. And a lot of times people just work themselves to the bone, but they're not really being productive. And I consider someone a lot smarter and harder working if they can accomplish more in 3 hours than somebody else does in 12. And that's just, if you're doing a bunch of things you shouldn't be doing that are just wasting your time and not moving the bottom line. And again, I say this about myself because I was there, but if you find yourself doing that for long extended periods of time, it's a good sign you're being intellectually lazy and not figuring out, okay, what should I not be doing at all? Like, what is just time wasting that's not productive? What can I automate? What can I delegate? And like, what do I need to be focusing on that's really the needle movers of the business? So something that helped me, just a practical tip, is starting your day with like a version of the 5-minute journal. And it's just kind of writing down like, all right, these are my 3 goals for the day. And it's kind of a mental discipline thing, but I am not allowed to check my email, to do anything else until I accomplish those 3 things, or it could be 2 things or even 1 thing. But having your high priority to-do list and focusing on that before allowing yourself to be distracted by any of the hundreds of shiny object things that us entrepreneurs come across every day. So.
Yeah. So starting your day by doing the most important things first.
Yeah. And clearly defining them. A really good book I recommend a lot is The One Thing by Gary Keller. And I do recommend like everybody actually read this book, but to summarize it, it can really be summarized as like, what's the one thing that I should do first that makes everything else either a bit easier to do or possibly unnecessary to do altogether. And if you can isolate things and put them in that order, you can get a lot more done in a lot less time.
Yeah. And I think that also ties up to something I've been thinking about lately, which is that we have been told that the key to success is hard work, but not all the times. I know people who work really hard and they really don't have $1,000,000 businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard work is important. I certainly don't want to. You're not going to succeed without hard work, but working smarter is more important. It's like a really hardworking, like the hardest working door-to-door salesman is not going to accomplish as much in 12 hours as one really good email marketer can do in a half hour. It's just, if you're working with the wrong tool set, you're not going to, if you've got a great chainsaw and somebody else is harder working but only has an axe, the lazy guy with the chainsaw is going to win. So it's really prioritizing how to work, and sometimes it's not how, it's who, and it's if you can partner with someone, or delegate. Like, there are a lot of business owners are too busy, for example, to fully utilize their email list. Now, like, AI has helped make some of these tasks quicker and easier, but just as an example, like if you're a business owner that you're working, your time and your energy is sucked up on all these other tasks, and you're letting your email list sit there. If you got a decent sized email list, there's a partner out there somewhere that is skilled and will partner with you on a revenue share basis to market to your list. And that's just extra money to you, so that you got to sometimes delegate things and partner with people to move the ball forward as well.
So you don't even have to come up with money up front to pay them.
I mean, most people out there are agencies that want large monthly retainers, but for example, like I don't do this in the e-commerce space, but I sometimes do that with larger 7 or 8 figure businesses in the coaching space or something like that, or that sell e-courses. And I'll be like, hey, you're making 7 figures, you're doing great. But you have this underutilized asset. I'll come in, you don't have to pay me anything. I'll market to your list. I'll invest my own money, my own time, put my team to work. We bring in some revenue and we have a revenue share that works for both of us. So, yeah. I mean, I sometimes do that on the higher ticket items, but there are people that do things like that on, lower ticket e-commerce products. And I wish when I was running Pets or Kids too, there was a time when I was not fully utilizing some of my business assets. And I wish I would have, spent a couple hours searching for that person back then. Because that would have brought in some extra revenue.
That's great. And I want to ask you a few things, like specifically about pets or kids too. So yeah, I read that you started the business on a credit card.
Yeah. So I started the business with like $3,000. So it was a pretty small budget, bootstrapped it and all of that. I mean, it's not that I didn't have $3,000 to my name. I did. So it wasn't, I'm not telling people to go into debt to start your business. I mean, some people do. I've got a buddy who went into debt, started his business, and I mean, small amount of debt, $5,000 or whatever, but I don't feel comfortable telling people to do that. Yeah. But I started my business with $3,000 on a credit card. And just reinvested every dollar of the business. I didn't quit my day job until the business was at $50,000 a month, I think, in sales. Oh, and then at that point, when the business was doing $50,000 a month, I paid myself a modest salary of $5,000 a month or something, and then gave myself raises as I moved the business forward and hit new revenue goals. So when I got to $75,000 a month, gave myself a raise. When I got to $100,000 a month in sales, gave myself a raise. 120, et cetera. But the more you can invest in your business and keep rolling the money back into your business, the bigger and faster the snowball will build. So I think that's important to do as well. If you start your business and are thinking you're going to give yourself a paycheck in the first month, I don't think that's usually wise.
Yeah, which is interesting because most people start their business because they want to make money.
Yeah, and you will, but you'll make a lot more money if you can delay payment to yourself for a bit and just reinvest back in the business. It's like I launched, I built a Facebook group, launched my products to that Facebook group. I didn't have money at first for Amazon PPC, but when I started making money from my first handful of sales, I reinvested all of that into Amazon PPC, and just kept the chips on the table, just for 6 months or so, until whenever it was, and I got to $50,000 a month.
Yeah, and I think this is something a lot of business owners don't. They don't know this, which is that their business will be valued on profits. So if they're just taking as much money out of the business, as much money as they can, is going to hurt that valuation, right?
Well, not really, because when you go to sell your business, there's what's called add backs, and owner disbursements and all of that count as profit. So if you go to sell your business, you look at, okay, what's the profitability, but you get to add back in what you paid yourself and other like one-time business expenses that the new owner would not incur going forward. For example, if you bought a one-time fee software that was $5,000 or something, that gets added back into profit when you go to sell, because the new owner is not going to have to pay that $5,000 again, but still gets use of that software forever. Okay. Business trips, often can be add backs. If you're flying to just a networking conference. Now, I mean, sometimes add backs are negotiated with the buyers, but oftentimes business trips and things like that get added back into, your seller discretionary earnings, which is what a business under 10 million is based off.
But did you face any trouble trying to sell your business since it wasn't like an old business? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it was like 3 years old, right? Like,
Yeah. Not really. Now, when I first thought of selling my business, I talked to a broker, Corn and Leanne Woodmass, the FBA broker is who I used. And when we first had our conversation, their advice to me was, hey, let's look at selling in 6 months, because businesses are normally valued on their trailing 12 months for businesses under 10 million. So if you have a great start to a business and a year later it's doing great, it's not time to sell yet, because your trailing 12 months, including your first couple months, won't be strong, and they'll want to see more progression than that. But year 2 or 3, if you're happy with the trailing 12 months, that can often be a good time to sell. And some people want to hold their businesses for much longer, and that's great too. I just kind of wanted to get a good payday and then can move on to, I do investing and consulting now and all of that. But, I've got a friend who we started our businesses at the same time, and he's still running his, and his has grown very well since, the time I sold mine. So, you don't have to sell your business. It can be a cash cow for you for years to come too.
Yeah. And knowing what you know today, because most people do not, they fail when they start business. Do you think for a first-time entrepreneur, it would be better to start with a small business, or maybe acquire one?
That's an interesting question. I didn't really learn much about acquiring businesses until after I sold mine. There are some really interesting plays there. Roland Frazier is a very smart guy. I learned some stuff from about acquiring businesses and using different types of seller financing, inventory financing. There are different ways you can acquire businesses without a lot of money out of pocket. It's complicated though. What I did is bootstrap it and build it from scratch. That's what I know. But I do know others who have acquired and grown businesses there. Now unless you have a special purpose vehicle and all this other complicated or semi-complicated legal stuff, you are acquiring risk as well and acquiring debt and things like that. So if you don't know what you're doing, if you've never built a business before, I probably wouldn't go acquire one to start. If you've got a background in this, the hardest part is really getting the business going in the first place. So if you have a background in mergers and acquisitions or just in e-commerce and whatever, and can acquire a business, that might be wise. But if you're where I was when I started Pets Are Kids Too, which was kind of a brand new entrepreneur who hasn't done it before, I probably wouldn't go acquire, just because I had to learn so much along the way, and you kind of learn as you grow. So
at least have a first business to learn. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoy kind of sitting in the creative guidance chair and helping, consult for others who are building businesses, especially dog businesses. But if I ever did another business myself, I would probably look at acquiring it. If I ever did full transparency, if I ever did another dog business, it would probably be a French Bulldog specific brand, just because that's what my 2 dogs are. And I think that sounds fun.
Very nice.
But I don't have any plans to do that. But if I ever did, I would first look if there's one available that I could acquire, just because I have the background now. I know what I'm doing now. But if you're a first-time entrepreneur, I'd probably advise you to, risk the amount of money you're willing to lose and start from scratch. And by starting from scratch, there are shortcuts you can take, because the most important thing for a successful launch is having an audience. And I built an audience from scratch. But you can also partner with other people's audiences. Something that I advise a lot of my students, and I have this coaching program for dog businesses specifically called Some Dog Millionaires. And what I advise all of my students there is, and even my students in outside of dog businesses that I teach in Ryan's group, is look for people who are other businesses that are serving the same person as you, but are not direct competitors. So, for example, if there is a French Bulldog supplement brand and someone else that has an online training course, dog training course specifically for French Bulldogs, you're serving the exact same person, but you are not competitors. It's like criminal negligence to not be partnering together, and advertising each other's lists and being on each other's inserts and, serving each other in some way. And those can be shortcuts to growing your audience. So that's a really simple tip for, rocket fuel on the growth of your audience. And then when you go to launch that product, that can be a big help.
Yeah, it's all about leverage. And I think one of the biggest things that you did was following a proven plan, in this case from capitalism.com.
Now, I had to add a lot of tweaks to that plan. One of the mistakes I see people make is not trying to tweak a bigger plan for their individual niche. So I think it's important to follow a good plan. Ryan's book is 12 Months to a Million, and that's a great book to get started on, but you also need to understand your micro niche and move forward with that. I attribute a huge amount of my success to a charity strategy that I think I invented. I've never seen it done before, but basically what we would do, and I encourage all my students to do some version of this now, just because I think it's good for your business, but also just good for the world. And I like seeing this kind of stuff out in the business world. But what we would do is on all of our products, there was like and it wasn't really an insert because it was on the product itself, but it said like, stop, send in a photo of your pet with this product, and then we'll donate, a portion to a dog with cancer. And there was basically like GoFundMe accounts for dogs with cancer. And whenever people would send in their photos, we would reply back with a collage of their dog and the dog that, we donated a couple dollars to from their purchase. We called it Pets Helping Pets, and, sent it back to them. And they were always thrilled with that, asked if they could post it on social media and, tag us, which brought us more sales. They loved us then. So if they didn't like the product for whatever reason, they'd still be a lot less likely to leave a negative review because they loved what we stood for. But, 95 times out of 100, they loved the product. So we'd say, thank you so much. Glad you love the product. Would you mind also leaving us a review? So we got a lot of reviews there, a lot of user generated content, and basically turned a good percentage of our customers into co-marketers. And that was a huge thing that I added to kind of the original plan laid out. So there's all kinds of different creative things you can do that can really help your business. But it's important to really understand what your audience cares about and incorporate it into your business.
So if you think what your audience cares about, you, like what you're saying is you can turn them into your advocates.
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of what the charity strategy does, turn them into your advocates. I mean, it does real good in the world too. I kind of cringe a little bit calling it a strategy because it just sounds, I don't know, sounds off, but
yeah, you didn't do it for the sales. I mean, maybe.
Yeah. It benefits you as the business owner for sure. But, we also donated, I don't know how much, but tens of thousands of dollars to actual, dogs with cancer and funded. And it's an important distinction that it's not, we donated to a charity that helps dogs. It's like, hey, there's this dog Brutus. Here's his story. His family's choosing between getting his cancer treatment funded or paying their rent. And, we're funding Brutus's procedure. And like, people care so much more about these specific things because they can see them, they can relate to them. Like if you donate money to charity, you don't know if it just goes to pay the electric bill of their marketing office. Yeah. That's not the same connection as like, hey, here's the actual person or dog or whatever that you're helping. So that's an important distinction. And also just when it comes to knowing what your what your people care about, what your customers care about, that goes into the product a lot too. I mean, the simple formula for a product success is like, okay, pain point plus differentiating factor equals sales. But it's not just differentiating factor. It's pain point plus differentiating factor that is uniquely important to your person.
Okay.
Equals sales. So for me, it was pain point was dogs' bad breath, and also like dental problems can cause dogs to pass away earlier. Pain point. Differentiating factor is an ingredient profile that my people care about because they worry that the ingredients and the products that were already out there could be harmful to their dogs, and that equals success. So that's and you can do that in any niche, dog world or outside of dog world. But
and it also worked because you were your target market, right?
Yeah, you don't have to be, but it certainly makes it easier, and I would say more fun if you're your target market. Like, I mean, I met a guy at a business conference who's probably my age or a couple of years older than me, late 30s, but has a skincare brand for women over 60. He's not his target market. His mom might be, but he's not. But he had to really strive to understand his target market. So that's the most important thing, is you really have to understand your target market, and understanding them is easier when you are one of them, I guess is the way I'd put it. So I always say, being your target market is advisable, but not 100% necessary.
Okay. And can you share a little bit more about that relationship between like making sales and doing good in the world?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big advocate for that. Like, I think the idea of capitalism and charity, or the idea of capitalism and a Christian worldview thing of tithing or whatever, I think that combination does a lot of good in the world, because if you can build the economy, create jobs, and all the benefits of capitalism, but there are some critiques of greed and all that in capitalism, which I get. But then if you incorporate charity as well and making the world a better place, I think that's, well, not a perfect system. That's like the best we've got. And I think doing like the charity strategy that I talked about is really good for any niche, because it will help your business, but also it does real measurable good in the world. And I think you can feel better about what you're doing and all of that. And I like the idea of building your own wealth while making the world a better place at the same time, as opposed to just, hoarding money kind of thing. So I think that combination is a powerful one and is good all around, and good for everyone. It's a win-win-win for everybody.
I like that. And I think that's going to become more and more important as the new generations start to become like the business owners, because right now we have older generations in which that wasn't as important, but definitely the younger people care about that.
Yeah, and younger people, our generation younger, we've got fairly strong BS sensors, and people are, like I said, nobody cares if you say, hey, we're donating to charity. Nobody cares, because they don't know what that means. Like I said, that could just go to, marketing budget for their advertising wing of whatever charity. Like, that's not powerful. But if you're like, and like some of you see a lot of environmental products that are like, hey, we do 1% to the planet. But a lot of people don't know what that means. Mm-hmm. If instead you're like, hey, with every purchase of X amount, we are planting a tree in this specific part of the Brazilian rainforest, like, that's a lot more powerful, because there are charities out there where you can donate $1 and it plants a tree. So I would say, like, if you're advertising you donate 1% to the planet, replace that with, all right, our goal is to plant 1,000 trees in this part of the rainforest, and here's how we're doing it. Here's our progress bar. Something you can see, something that's measurable, something that's tangible and real. If you have a parenting brand and you can fund someone's adoption or IVF costs or something like that, I think is more powerful than just we donate to X charity or we support X cause, because it's just it's in one ear out the other, and people just have this BS meter going off of, I don't really think you're doing much good when you do it that way. So having that hyper specificity and personalization, I think is really vital.
I really, really like that because I actually studied sustainable development and I wasn't into business at all because I thought, yeah, subconsciously I had this dilemma between should I do good in the world or get into business.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we need more examples like yours, to be honest, of how we can bring those two together.
Yeah, I think you not only can but should do both at the same time. These are not like, oh, you're making profit and you're doing good. Like those, you can bring those together.
Are you looking for ways to grow your business faster? I have created a free masterclass that explains the 5 levels of exit every entrepreneur must go through. And by the way, selling your company is only one of them. The 8 biggest reasons why businesses get stuck and fail and how to avoid them. And a proven framework to turn your business into an asset so you can achieve faster profits and limitless impact with less stress and overwhelm in the process. If you would like to turn your small or medium-sized business into a valuable, sellable enterprise, this class is definitely for you. Just go to myplantoscale.com to get access now. Now, back to the show.
So,
yeah. And one thing that I noticed when I was researching about you is that you also like to travel a lot.
Yep. I'm a big traveler. So
yeah, in nature too.
Yeah. And one thing I'll throw out there is just a little tip for if you're building businesses, you're going to have a lot of expenses and all of that. I haven't paid for a flight or a rental car or a hotel room in years, and it's all because of like credit card points. And if you're building a business, you get all kinds of costs that can go on credit card points. So check out thepointsguy.com, not guide, but like man, thepointsguy.com. And they've got a beginner section. You can go through how you get credit card sign up bonuses. And I mean, this is the kind of thing like don't go spend more money than you otherwise would have spent. That's how you get in trouble. But if you have business associated costs that are coming up over and over, you might as well be getting free vacations out of them. And like I said, I travel a lot and I don't pay for anything because I get it all through points. So that's a whole deep, you can do a whole podcast episode about how all that works. So thepointsguy.com and search somewhere in there for the beginner's guide.
That's great. And have you found also ways to balance growing a business and keeping your lifestyle?
Yeah. So, doing an e-commerce business, it's the laptop lifestyle. Usually, you're not, you can work. And so, yeah, you kind of build around your lifestyle or around the lifestyle you want. Focusing on narrowing down your to-do list through the filter of like the 5-minute journal in the morning and reading that, The One Thing by Gary Keller book can really help. Profit First is another book that I'd really recommend people read. But yeah, I think you have to be intentional about, all right, what lifestyle do I want? And am I busting my ass for a few years and then having an exit and then enjoying that lifestyle? Or am I building my business around the lifestyle I want? They're both viable paths. I like the idea of building the business around the lifestyle you want, but some people want to rush to the finish line a little faster.
Yeah, because you started your business that way, right? Because you wanted to be your own boss. It just grew so much that you ended up selling it.
Yeah. I don't think I planned on selling it from the beginning, just because I didn't know what I was doing at the time, didn't have the confidence that I could. But once it really started taking off, and I was like, oh, I've really got something here. I thought, okay, maybe someday I'll sell it. And it actually, 0 to sale in under 3 years is actually pretty quick compared to what a lot of my colleagues or whatever you want to call them, fellow entrepreneurs do. So that was a pretty quick turnaround for the business. But like I said, I've got friends that are more successful than me that haven't sold their business and just keep on running it and growing it. And that's a viable option too.
Yeah. And can you share a little bit more about what you are doing with Some Dog Millionaires and how can it help people?
Yeah. So, like I said, I do group coaching for the 1% group in capitalism.com. And that is a mix of all different types of businesses. All the one-on-one coaching I do now is only dog brands. And my website is somedogmillionaires.com, not Slumdog like the movie, but some dog like a play on that. Somedogmillionaires.com. And I've got a couple different packages in there, but it just focuses just on dog brands. Not that I don't like cat brands or anything else, but for my one-on-one consulting, that's where my expertise is, and frankly, that's what I like the most. I really encourage people to niche down, because the market's even more competitive than it was when I built Pets Are Kids Too. But to niche down more now, like I said, if I ever did another brand personally, it'd be a French Bulldog brand. So you can have a breed specific brand. You can have a brand for senior dogs, a brand for pet owners that are adopting dogs that came from an abusive situation. Like all of those people's customer journeys are different, but they're all big enough audiences where you can build $1 million or multi-million-dollar brand on it. A lot of times people think there won't be enough customers if you niche down too far. If I'm just going to do a brand for Chihuahuas, are there going to be enough customers? Yes, there are. So you want to be the dog brand for a well-defined group of people. So I do have a thing where I can work with brand new entrepreneurs, but where I think I am the most helpful is for dog brands that are maybe at like a 6-figure dog brand, somebody that's doing 25 grand a month or higher, and I can help them get to 125 grand a month is where I think I can move the needle the most. But I do work with some brand new people that just have an idea and want to get it launched as well.
And you come in. Yeah.
I was just say I've got a preparing for exit package as well, because there are certain things you can do to add 50 to 100 grand to what you're going to get paid when you sell your company. One of the things I did was pre-source the next product, but not launch it for my dog brand. When I sold it, I had, the first inventory order of just 100 or 200 orders, cost me a few grand, but had it ready for the new buyers. And that was like a carrot I got to dangle. It's like, hey, we've had this great trajectory, but you don't even have to source the next product. I've got it done for you. It's ready to launch. Here's my launch plan, et cetera. So there are some things you can do to, that are a little bit of work, but not much, but can, literally get you an extra, let's just call it 75 grand when you go to sell. And that's a pretty good ROI on a small amount of work. So I've got a prepping for exit package for dog brands too.
And have you ever considered doing a roll-up of dog brands?
I have. I haven't done a roll-up, but I've certainly considered it. It's on my maybe list. And for any of your listeners that might not know what a roll-up is, you can take a number of different companies that are complementary, roll them under one ownership or management structure, and then sell that entity. And that is often sold at a higher multiple than the companies all would have individually. And the reason for that is when you get higher revenue, companies over, say, 10 million in revenue sell for a higher multiple than companies below 5 million in revenue. So if you can do a roll up and bring them all together, sell, you can, all the members can get paid more. So it's a very interesting play. And yeah, that's one of the potential benefits of my Some Dog Millionaires program is, I have those connections and could implement that at the time, but I want to make sure it's done right, so I don't want to rush it either.
Okay.
Good question, though. It's a pretty advanced question that I haven't got before, so good question.
It sounds like you might be the right person at the right time. Like, not a lot of people have that unique experience that you have. Yeah. And it's something so specific that, yeah, I could see it happening.
Yeah, it's possibility.
So, and you partner out, the last question would be, you partner with people as a mentor, as as a mentor. But you mentioned something about funding people for deals. Is that something separate?
Yeah, that's something separate. And that's not really in the dog world specifically, but something else I do is just for higher ticket, meaning $2,000 or higher, e-courses, coaching packets or coaching programs, etc. I'm pretty decent at marketing, and a lot of people have large email lists and past buyer lists that there's hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in them untapped. And they don't really know how to get it out. And I have personally wasted a lot of money hiring agencies that, didn't turn out. A large upfront container and then a few disappointing months of an extra $5,000 here, an extra $5,000 there. So I know the pain of doing that. So on businesses that, higher ends or higher ticket businesses that I am confident I can move the needle on, I'll sometimes invest my own money and time and not charge them anything, but I'll come in and say, hey, if I can bring you a lot more sales, let's talk about a revenue split that makes sense for both of us. It's just no risk to you and just found extra money you otherwise wouldn't have had. And if I can make that happen for you, what kind of partnership here? Or I like to start with a test. I don't want to get into like a detailed business, but like, hey, this could work. Let's run a quick test. If it works, we can go on a quote unquote second date and bring in more revenue and go from there. But that's not even in the e-commerce space. That's just something else I've got my hands in that I'm doing. So if any of your listeners are running a high ticket program, it's at least worth a 10-minute Zoom call too, so they can find me and reach out.
For sure. All right, Chad, thank you so much for being here. And do you want to mention where people can find more about you? Yeah,
I mean, it's probably easiest to just find me on Facebook, and you can shoot me a DM. If you're in the dog e-commerce world, probably easiest just to go to somedogmillionaires.com. For anything else, I have a LinkedIn, I have an Instagram, et cetera, but Facebook is where I check most often.
If you enjoyed the show, hit the share button and send it over to one fellow marketer or entrepreneur. We work hard to make sure they'll thank you for it. Also, to get featured on the show, go to valuetizing.com and apply to become our next guest. Until next time, keep valuetizing.